first reading is the Old Testament, Psalm 121. I lift my eyes to the hills. From where will my help come? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. He will not let your foot be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. He who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun shall not strike you day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all evil. He will keep your life. The Lord will keep you going out and you're coming in from this time on and forevermore. The New Testament reading is Luke chapter 2, verse 41-52. Now every year his parents went to Jerusalem for the festival of the Passover, and when he was 12 years old, they went up as usual for the festival. When the festival was ended and they started to return, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem. But his parents were unaware of this. Assuming that he was in the group of travelers, they went on a day's journey. Then they started to look for him among their relatives and friends. When they did not find him, they returned to Jerusalem to search for him. After 3 days, they found him in the temple, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking questions. And all who heard him were amazed at his understanding and his answers. When his parents saw him, they were astonished. And his mother said to him, "Child, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously looking for you." And he said to them, "Why were you searching for me? Did you not know that I must be in my father's house?" But they did not understand what he said to them. Then he went down with them and came to Nazareth and was obedient to them. And his mother treasured all these things in her heart. And Jesus increased in wisdom and in years and in divine and in human favor. These are God's holy words.
Carla, thank you so much for reading for us this morning. Have you ever lost something? I know I have. Just this week, I couldn't find a Christmas present. I know I had a Christmas present. I know it was nicely wrapped. I know I had it. I know. And then when I was looking for it, trying to give it to that person, I couldn't find it. I looked everywhere. I looked in my car, I looked in my pockets, I looked in my bag, threw everything out, sorted everything out, thinking it might have fallen in between something. I looked at my desk. I even looked in the dishwasher and in the freezer, thinking maybe it's in there. Because, maybe it is in there. It was right where I put it, on the most obvious place, on the table in front of me. And I just couldn't find it. Because probably my eyes were kind of blinded, and I didn't look correctly the first time. Anybody here ever lost maybe car keys, a phone, a wallet, passports, you name it? And now multiply that fear by 1,000,000 when you do not know where your child is. Can you imagine that feeling in your tummy? You will basically look everywhere. But first of all, you do not know that your child is missing because Mary and Joseph, observant Jews, go to the pilgrimage like they do every single year to Jerusalem. By this time, Jesus is 12 years old, so just before the cusp of being a teenager. And anybody who has ever been parents of so-to-be teenagers know they want to be independent. So Mary, mom, probably thinks he's with Joseph. Joseph probably thinks he's with his friends. And his friends probably think they're with other relatives. So, you take care of each other. You walk together. It's like going with everybody to the state fair. Thousands and thousands of people. And you don't worry about your child because you think like, he's independent. Somebody is looking after him. And you keep talking, and you keep walking, and you keep talking, and you keep walking. Not a single thing. It's dark. It's evening. You set up for dinner. Set up your tent, we're going to sleep, and you're like, where is he? Where's who? Well, our son. I don't know. I thought he was with you. No, I thought he was with you. But the last time I saw him, can just imagine maybe how that conversation goes between mom and dad, thinking that the other person is responsible for him. You ask the friends, the parents of the friends. No idea. Panic sets in. Of course you do what any loving parent does. Walk all the way back and search everywhere. You ask strangers, have you seen my son? He's about this high, or maybe this high. No, he grew a couple of inches. Maybe he's this high now. Dark hair, olive skin, like a lot of 12-year-old Palestinian boys look like. Just exactly this is how he looks like. Have you seen him? No, you haven't. So you go to the stores, you go to the places you've been at, you go everywhere, all the many, many streets. And I think some of us might recall some times when our children couldn't be found anywhere. And you asked strangers. And that was the time before the alerts, the Amber Alerts went out. That was the time before detectives. That was the time before. So it was literally word of mouth. No idea. Searching for 3 long days, and the tension is just rising. And the tension between mom and dad, there's worries, there's fear, there's love, all the emotions you can imagine. Finally, you go to there's a place you just have no idea about. You go to the temple, and there he is, sitting amongst the teachers and the leaders of the big temples. And this is what does our verse say right here in verse 46, which Carla read to us. He was sitting amongst the teachers, listening to them, and asking questions. I do not know about you parents, but if I were his mom, I would have a word or two to say. Just maybe a word or two like, where were you? Have you no idea how we're looking for you? On one hand, you want to punish. Maybe on the other hand, you want to love and to hug and everything together. This is exactly what Mary does. And Jesus' response, like, I'm not lost. You were lost. You looked at the wrong places. Of course I had to be here. Of course. And at that point, I do not know what I would have done, being the mom of this boy who just got lost for 3 days and I had to walk all the way back. This is the only story we have of Jesus, neither being an infant nor being an adult. I do not know about you and your family reunions you might have had over the Christmas or holiday season. You tell stories of the past. If this would have been the only story of you growing up, imagine what reputation you have. Oh, that's the boy who got lost at age 12. Age 12. In Jewish tradition, you become an adult at age 13, 14. So you're not even an adult yet. Here, they didn't have the teenagers, which we have now. You were either a kid or you were grown up. You were either a kid or you had the knowledge and you were a member of a community, of a faith community. And then you were allowed to read. Then you were allowed to have leadership tradition, but not as a child. And here he was, 12 years old, definitely not an adult, neither in their sense of thinking, not in ours. And Jesus was at the place where he thought he was home, a place where he thought he belonged, because his parents just looked at the wrong places. Like I was looking at the wrong places in the freezer and in the dishwasher for my Christmas present. I was looking at the wrong places. It is interesting for me to look at the story from a parent perspective, all the worries going through my mind, knowing and relating to the times when my children got lost. And I'm glad I found them, and they were always to the places where they were supposed to be, because they ran home, and I looked at the wrong places. Jesus felt comfortable enough to be and to stay at the temple. And again, there are three words, three verbs, three participles I want to focus with you upon. He was sitting amongst the teachers. Sitting. He didn't just say, hi, how are you doing? But he took time and they took time for him, spending time. He was listening. And listening is different than hearing. Do you know that? Because not just in English, there's a really interesting dynamic. If you tell the letters of a listen, they're the same letters as in being silent. So you have to be silent in order to listen, which is so different than hearing. You can hear many, many noises and voices, like the dog barking, maybe the television is on here, there are some keys rattling, dishes rattling over there, and there are people talking over there. That is hearing. But listening, you focus, you pay attention, you're right there in the moment. And then he was asking questions. What do you do when you ask questions? You pay attention. You want to know more. You want to find out what is the reason behind it. And some of these questions might be uncomfortable. Some of the questions kids ask, teenagers ask, might be uncomfortable because they are not necessarily easy answers because I told you so. And so is Jesus. Jesus is fascinating in the story because of what he does. He is at home to the place where he is figuring out how does the law from the old times relate to me and to the people. He is asking, he is in conversations. And I want to say a big thank you to all of you parents for bringing in your children, your teenagers, your young adults going to college, to church, so that you can sit. You are sitting. You are listening. You are asking questions. Thank you so much to the Sunday school teachers and to the youth group leaders, because I am sure that some of these kids, some of the kids I know, ask questions which don't necessarily have easy answers because they want to know more. And they're looking up to you as Jesus was looking up to the teachers in the temple. But they feel comfortable enough to ask. And I want to thank you for that. And for those of us who have graduated from high school, thank you for those leaders for adult classes, because you facilitate an atmosphere where people can ask, where people feel comfortable enough, where people can wonder about what has this word of God to do with me and to do with us. How does it apply to the lives we're living in right now? And not just to memorize verses to spit out, but you're asking, you're in conversation, you've been taken seriously. And I want to thank you for that. And anybody who loves to hang out with teenagers, they're hilarious. They're really, really deep questioning. And I love that we, for our confirmation class, have mentors where they are matched with another adult, feeling comfortable enough to ask questions. That we just do not just memorize certain facts, but we want them to be in relationship, not only to the people here at church, but also to the Word of God, so that they can ask really, really deep questions and hopefully coming to their own conclusions. I love that. It is much more exhausting than just to say memorize and memorize. But I think we're actually getting people much more engaged in that. And interesting enough also for me, when Jesus was in the temple, the invitations from the teachers was, here you are, take a seat, take your time, listen, be engaged, and ask questions. There was no of, you are too young, because you're only 12 years old. There was no, what is your qualification for you to sit here? There was no, you are not worthy because you are not yet a member. There was none of that. But you matter. Your questions matter. And therefore we are so glad to see you, that you are here, because we can learn from one another. And that's what you do with really good questions. You learn from one another. And there's no test to determine if your faith is deep enough, if you qualify to be here. In a couple of minutes, we are all invited to celebrate communion. The first time in this year where we all gather together at this table. And again, there is no test for you to qualify if you are worthy enough, if you know enough. But just come. This is Christ's table. As Christ was welcomed in this temple with all the other teachers, so we invite you to come, to listen, to ask, and to take in the bread and the cup, and to feel how Jesus is part of your life. Mary and Joseph, they looked for Jesus everywhere, at the wrong places. Where are we looking for Jesus? Are we looking at the wrong places? Where do we find him? Maybe we find him right here. Maybe we find him where people are listening to one another, where people are asking questions, where people are taking seriously and wondering what has the law, the Bible, the Word of God to do with my life and with our lives. And then Christ comes to you, not only in the bread and in the cup, but you will find Jesus right where he belongs, not only in the temple, but also in our lives. And I hope in this Epiphany season, the season after Christmas, where we celebrate the light, that we experience that light growing in us and the light in the world shining for us, because Jesus is the light which we proclaim, who we proclaim, and therefore, hopefully, the world can be a little bit brighter because of the light we shine through him in the world.